You stand in a village square of the Ottoman Empire, 1648. Ottoman history presses in from every side. A crowd gathers near the wooden post. The air smells of dust and sheep fat. A drummer raps a slow beat. A constable holds a rope. A crier raises a paper and calls names. You feel the square tighten as neighbors lean forward. Public flogging is not rare here. Children whisper. Traders pause their scales. You count the steps between the crier and the post. The rope looks fresh. The iron brand rests in ash at the brazier. The threat is simple. Stand, watch, obey. Punishment here served the crowd more than the culprit. The queen is far away in Istanbul. The sultan even farther. The village answers to nearer hands. The Kadı rides in from the district seat. The Subasha guards the market. Their rule sits on routine. Exposure at the pillory, a measured flogging. Sometimes a burn that marks a trade or a theft. The record book matters. The court scribe writes names and fines. The market sees those names turned into bodies at the post. The empire teaches through a short walk from hearing to square. People remember what they see. That is the point. Why now? Because public shame has not vanished. It adapts to streets, screens, and small towns today. Names mattered. Marks mattered more on bare skin. Earlier that morning, the headman filed a complaint. A fight over weights at the spice stall. A missing bag of grain. A rumor that a shepherd cut a neighbor's tether. The Kadı heard witnesses under the plane tree. He weighed testimony against habit and past cases. He chose Tazir, discretionary punishment under Sharia, because the harm was public and small, yet corrosive. The Kanun, the Sultan's secular code, also shaped the range of blows and coins. The sentence was simple: an hour at the post, a dozen strokes on the soles or back, if repeated, a mark. Then return to work. The process looked ordinary. That made it strong. The law made fear through visible daily acts. Back to the square. The crier lists rules. Do not throw stones. Do not touch the rope. Do not shout. The constable nods at the brazier. The blacksmith tests the iron, then sets it down. The drummer slows. The man to be tied keeps his eyes on the ground. His wife stands 2 rows back. The Kadı watches the crowd more than the culprit. He knows the lesson must reach the boys who barter for figs and the men who shortchange pilgrims. Public order depends on sightlines. It depends on everyone leaving with the same message: the court sees you. A single drumbeat could change a family's fate. Time moves. The constable leads the man forward. The rope crosses wrists and beam. The crier reads the sentence again, slowly, so the gossip will repeat it word for word. The drummer lifts his stick and waits for the Kadı's hand. The village holds its breath. The iron is still at rest. The Kadı glances toward the market gate. He expects someone. A messenger from the district fortress arrives late, dust on his boots. He carries a sealed slip for the Kadı. The wax bears an official stamp. The crowd shifts, unsure. Public shame works because everyone stands close together. The Kadı breaks the seal and scans the line. His eyes narrow. He folds the slip and looks at the man at the post, then at the wife in the second row. He turns to the crier and says one short order. The drummer does not move. The crowd leans in, hungry for change. You feel the square tilt toward a new decision. What did the messenger bring, and whose name is on it now? The Kadı read the slip twice. It was a bayruldu from the district Sancakbey. It listed market cases tied to grain and weights. It carried the fortress seal. It also listed prior sentences. One entry matched the man bound to the post, a fine 3 months earlier. A warning recorded in the cycle, the court register. The present offense followed the same pattern: fraud at the scales. The order required escalation under Tazir for repeat harm to the market. The Kadı looked up. He told the crier to add one word: branding. One slip could brand a life permanently. 3 months earlier, the same Kadı sat under the plane tree. He fined the man after witness oaths. The muhtasib, the market inspector, confirmed the misweighted brass. The court let the man keep his stall. The Kadı warned him in writing. He told him any repeat would move from fine to body. That note now returned in the fortress order, back to the square. The blacksmith checked the brazier again. He pushed coal and watched the iron edge glow. The Kadı's scribe stepped to the side and sharpened his reed pen. He would copy the new sentence into the register as soon as the blows ended. The square felt smaller when the word changed. The wife raised her hand. She asked leave to speak. The Kadı nodded. She asked that the court accept kefale. She offered herself as surety for future order in place of the mark. She swore that the stall would close for 1 week and that the family would repay any short measure twice. The Kadı listened. He asked the muhtasib if such pledges had held before. The muhtasib said yes, sometimes, but only when the fraud did not touch grain for the fortress. The messenger cleared his throat. He said the complaint came from a soldier's purveyor. The harm had touched fortress bread. A market promise mattered less than garrison food. The Kadı weighed the order and the plea. He turned to the scribe. He asked for the prior entry. The scribe read the date aloud. 3 months, 12 days. The Kadı asked the muhtasib to bring the family scales. They arrived from the stall, wrapped in cloth. The muhtasib set standard weights on the plate. The beam tipped wrong by a finger's width. He announced the fault to the crowd. The Kadı turned back to the wife. He spoke gently. He said kefale bound neighbors, but fortress supply bound him. He could not set aside the order. The wife lowered her hand. Some rules bend. Grain rules do not. Foreshadow sat in the crier's next line. The crier announced that winter convoys would start in 40 days. Shortages raised punishments by standing practice. The Kadı told the blacksmith to ready the iron. He told the constable to switch from back blows to falaka on the soles, as the man labored with sacks and must still carry after healing. He set the number at 12. He added the mark to the wrist, small and near the vein, for muhtasib checks at future markets. The scribe wrote each element with care. The drummer moved to the man's feet. Winter would make the market harder, not softer. The Kadı closed one book in his head. The name on the slip matched the man at the post. Another began. He looked again at the wife. He asked if any boy in the house handled the scales. She hesitated. She said their nephew sometimes stood in the stall. The Kadı glanced at the messenger. He asked the muhtasib to record the nephew's name as a helper under kefale. The wife swallowed. Household control had arrived at their door. The constable tied the man's ankles to the falaka bench. The drummer tapped once. The crier read the number aloud. Public shame keeps its force because it spreads. Why now? Because records, marks, and public lists still follow people today. Names move as fast as rumors once moved. A scar can be a file can be a scar. The Kadı raised his hand. The blacksmith lifted the iron and waited. The drummer held his stick high. The crowd went silent. The wife gripped her scarf. The messenger looked toward the gate, as if another order might appear. The Kadı opened his mouth to speak the final word. The drummer's arm stayed in the air. Would the Kadı brand now, or accept the pledge at last? The Kadı gave the order. Falaka first, branding after. He denied kefalet. He cited the Bayruldu. Ottoman Empire routine tightened. Public flogging and branding would follow law and practice. The constable fixed the man's ankles. The drummer counted. The scribe watched. 12 strokes fell in measure. The crowd kept time in silence. The wife looked down. The nephew stared at the bench. The Kadı nodded once when the 12th landed. The constable untied the feet and led the man upright. The wrist waited for the next step. Discretion ended. Consequence began. The blacksmith laid out irons on a plank. One showed a plain market sign, long used for mutasib checks. Another carried a small letter linked to the local tax farm, the iltizam holder. The Kadı pointed at the market sign. He spoke so all could hear. He said the mark would sit near the wrist vein, where inspectors could see it. He said the brand would not bar work. It would warn against cheating. He told the scribe to note the sign's form in the sisal. The blacksmith turned to the brazier. Coal popped. The iron edge went dull red. Marks outlast fines. That was the lesson. Stakes grew beyond the family. The fortress needed flour. The Sankakbai had orders to keep supply steady. Short waits weakened bread. Soldiers blamed local courts when loaves shrank. The Kadı knew that chain. Village stall, market weight, garrison ration, patrol morale, road safety. In a thin year, one fault spread. The crowd knew this too. Grain convoys drew thieves. Families hid wheat under floors. Bandits watched passes. Every winter made laws stricter at the square, by habit if not page. Small rules guarded large stores. A year earlier, the district saw shortages. The river ran low. 2 convoys failed to arrive. The fortress cut rations for a week. A fight broke near the mill. The Kadı ordered extra market rounds by the Subasha. He fined men who watered flour. He posted 2 names at the mosque gate. The muhtasib seized crooked weights and hung them over the stall. That memory still lived in the village. It sharpened today's crowd. It also sharpened the Kadı's caution. He needed a sentence that traveled in gossip and obeyed the Bayrildu. Bad years do not forgive small crimes. Second foreshadow came with the messenger's whisper. He said an inspector would tour markets within a month to review sisals after the change in Istanbul. The Kadı heard the hint. He adjusted his voice. He restated the elements, 12 on the soles, a visible but narrow brand, a week's stall closure, double repayment for any short measure found next visit. He repeated the nephew's entry under kefale as a helper. He told the muhtasib to test the family scales, again after 7 days. Details would meet the inspector's eye. Audits arrive when talk grows loud. The crier raised his sheet. He read the terms to the crowd. He listed the winter convoy start date. He told stallholders to bring weights for testing on market day. The wife breathed out and back in, steadying herself. The man at the post clenched his jaw. The blacksmith lifted the iron. He checked color. He wiped the tip. The constable took the man's right arm and turned the wrist. The Kadı watched the wife and nephew, not the iron. He wanted the lesson to land inside the house. The drummer set his stick across the drumhead and waited. Fear spread by sightlines, not rumors. Why now? Because public records, posted names, and permanent marks still move with people today. Because small cheats in supply chains still reach soldiers and cities. Because inspections still follow shortages. The crowd learned the line from stall to state. The Kadı lifted his hand. The blacksmith stepped forward. The wife gripped her scarf. The nephew took 1 step toward the post and stopped. The crier lowered his sheet halfway and frowned. He had heard the same whisper as the messenger. The brand rose to meet the skin. Then the blacksmith paused. He looked down. 2 irons lay too close. The plain market sign, the iltizam letter. The heat looked equal. The Kadı's face tightened. The messenger shifted his weight and touched his pouch. He said the inspector would ask which seal authorized which mark. The Kadı glanced at the plank, at the crowd, at the scribe. He opened his mouth to give a single, binding choice. Which seal should burn into the skin now? And who would answer for it? The Kadı stepped to the plank. He pointed at the plain market sign. He told the blacksmith to put the other iron away. He said the iltizam letter had no place in a tazir mark. The messenger shifted again. The Kadı turned to him. He asked who sent the second iron. The messenger said the multazim, the tax farmer, requested it for repeat cheats. The Kadı nodded once. He looked at the crowd. He spoke clearly. He said the Bayruldu named punishment, not private brands. He said the Kanun did not grant a multazim the right to stamp bodies. Then, he told the scribe to read the order aloud. Public power ends where private marks begin. The scribe read slowly. The order set falaka. The order allowed a visible brand for market inspection. It did not name any letter or farm. It did not tie a man to a tax office. The Kadı raised his hand. He told the blacksmith to lift the plain sign only. He faced the crowd. He said this on record. Last winter, 2 men had been marked with a letter near the fortress town. Their stalls lost suppliers unless they dealt with the multazim's agent. That practice had no page and no judge. He looked at the messenger's pouch and asked him to open it. Names can hide in a purse as well as a book. The messenger hesitated. The crowd watched. The Kadı called the muhtasib forward. He asked him to inspect the pouch in the public view. The muhtasib emptied it onto the plank. A small, sealed note slid out with coins. The Kadı broke the seal. The note asked the court to prefer the letter brand to mark the offender for future dues. No signature, only the iltizam seal. The Kadı held it up. He said the court would enter the note into the seshil as an attempt to influence sentence. He ordered the muhtasib to witness the entry. The messenger paled. A square can become a courtroom in one breath. This was the secret. The iltizam letter would turn a public tazir into a private tag. It would let the multazim control who bought grain and who could sell after release. It would turn a market penalty into a debt notice. The Kadı named the abuse without shouting. He said the brand would be the plain sign only. He said the village would not wear private stamps. He looked up at the scribe. He told him to write the words, "Unauthorized request," beside the iltizam seal. He told the muhtasib to keep the pouch until the inspector arrived. Some lines keep markets free from private chains. He resolved the old question at once. The blacksmith raised the plain iron. The constable turned the wrist. The mark would match the sisal description. The choice was final. The drummer held the beat. The wife stared at the iron without blinking. The nephew gripped the post with white knuckles. The Kadı fixed his eyes on the crowd. He wanted the message to travel. Courts punish. Tax farmers collect. Neither invades the other's work without law. He nodded. The blacksmith stepped forward. One clear rule can hold a whole square steady. The Kadı also set a new safeguard. He told the muhtasib to test all stall weights weekly until convoy day. He told the subasha to stand watch at brandings, to prevent private marks from appearing at the plank. He told the messenger to carry a reply. Future Bayruldis must state any brand shape in words, not hints. He told the wife that kefale would apply to the nephew only if he appeared at the next hearing. He closed the slip and sealed the note inside a separate file. The inspector would see it. Audits matter when side letters try to steer the lash. Why now? Because supply chains still meet private leverage today. Because signs and files still shift public penalties into private control. Because local offices still test the limits of law. The Kadı lifted his hand for the brand. The blacksmith checked the color. He moved in. The iron touched skin. A short hiss. The brand took. The constable loosened the rope. The Kadı turned to the messenger and told him to wait. He would sign the reply in an hour, after the scribe finished the entry. The iron choice had a lawful answer. The messenger raised his head. He listened. Then, horse hooves sounded at the gate. 4 riders entered the square. Their coats showed the multazim's colors. They carried a folded banner and a leather chest. The lead rider called for the Kadı by name. He said he bore a counterorder, sealed the previous night. He lifted the chest and set it down by the plank. The muhtasib looked at the seal and frowned. The Kadı kept his voice calm and asked one question. What stood inside the chest, and who had signed the counterorder? The lead rider offered the scroll. The Kadı held it to the light. Wax showed the iltizam seal, nothing else. No judge sign, no court hand. He read the single line. It demanded the letter brand. It cited no law. He raised the sheet so all could see. He said the square recognized only lawful orders. He named the lack. He set the scroll on the plank and did not touch it again. Paper without a court hand moves no iron here. The leather chest opened under the muhtasib's eyes. A folded banner, a purse, 2 letter-shaped irons. Heat from the brazier brushed the rim. The blacksmith looked at his plain brand cooling in ash. The writer spoke for the farm. He asked for the letter mark. He called the man a repeat cheat. He pointed at the wrist. The Kadı answered in one line. The court had branded under law. The session on branding was closed. One message landed. No second brand today. Close to the post, the smell of singed skin lingered. The mark reddened and swelled. The man flexed his fingers once, then held still. The wife watched the purse. The nephew's jaw tightened. The drummer kept his stick high, not moving. The constable shifted his stance. The muhtasib counted coins with his eyes only. The crier lowered his sheet to his side and waited. Silence pressed harder than any speech. The writer lifted a letter iron by the handle. The blacksmith stepped between plank and hand. He said the iron lacked a court word. The writer raised the scroll. The Kadı's palm stayed up. He repeated the absence. Judge sign? None. Case name? None. Authority? None. The writer's mouth set. The Subasha took 2 calm steps. Boots scraped dust. He said the square kept court peace. He said no one moved an iron without the Kadı. Lines hold when everyone sees them. The lead writer studied faces. Traitors. Boys. The muhtasib's pen. The Subasha's boots. The square did not blink. The writer set the letter iron down. The chest lid sagged open by an inch. The purse lay heavy inside. The banner stayed folded. The Kadı told the muhtasib to note each object. He told the writer the inspector would read the sisal soon. He did not raise his voice. He looked at the plain wrist mark and let the quiet carry. The counter-order had no weight. Heat pulsed from the brazier. A coal popped. Ash drifted. The blacksmith reached to push the irons apart. Another writer nudged the plank with a boot. The letter iron shifted. It tipped toward the brazier's lip. The blacksmith grabbed and missed. Metal scraped clay. Sparks jumped. The iron slid. It dropped, edge first, toward the man's bare wrist. 1 bad inch can undo an hour's law. The wife cried out. The nephew lunged. The Subasha moved. The constable reached. The Kadı turned faster than his years. The blacksmith swung his tongs across the fall. The crier took a step without meaning to. The drummer's stick slipped and clicked against the drumhead. The square drew breath as one. Every eye watched the same inch of air. The iron fell past the plank's edge. The burned edge glowed dull red. It spun once. The wrist lay open below it. Sweat shone on the skin. The brand already there darkened in the heat. The wife's hand was close. The nephew's palm reached. The tongs flashed. Would the iron strike flesh again? Or would the line hold? The iron hit the tongs. The blacksmith trapped the shank and twisted. The hot edge missed the wrist by a finger. It dropped into the brazier with a hiss. Sparks rose and died. The Subasha seized the writer's arm and held him still. The Kadı kept his palm up and spoke one word. Enough. The wife steadied her breath. The nephew froze with his hand out. The square exhaled as one. The man's single lawful brand reddened and held. 1 inch can decide if order holds. The Kadı pointed at the chest. The muhtasib closed the lid and sealed it. The crier read the entry for the record. Scroll with iltizam seal. 2 letter irons, 1 purse, 1 folded banner. The scribe wrote, attempt to disturb sentence beside the writer's name. The Subasha told the writers to wait under the plane tree. The Kadı ordered a fine for disorder and removal from the square before sunset. He turned to the man at the post. He ordered a clean cloth and oil. He ordered the stall closed 7 days. He repeated double repayment for any short wait found later. Evidence moves slower than anger, but it arrives. The wife stepped forward. She tied the cloth on the wrist. The nephew helped the man stand. The drummer lowered his stick. The blacksmith cooled the plain iron in water. The Kadı told the messenger he would carry 2 replies, one to the Sanchak Bey, one to the fortress. He told the Mutasib to escort the chest to the courthouse. He told the crier to post the rule at the mosque gate. No private letters on bodies. Brands must match the Sicil description. The crowd broke apart in low talk. The session ended. Rules travel when people repeat the same line. 30 days later, the inspector rode in. He sat with the Kadı and opened the Sicil. He read the entries for the market case and the chest. He examined the seized irons. He asked for the messenger's pouch note. He compared seals. He spoke without heat. He said the multezim had no right to stamp bodies. He fined the writers for disturbance and cited the farm for overreach. He directed that any brand shapes be listed in Byruldus, if allowed at all, and only by judge order. He signed a notice and told the crier to post it. Paper fixed what the square had learned. The inspector sent a copy to the district seat. The Sanchak Bey forwarded it to the fortress. The Mutasib added a weekly weights table to the mosque gate. 2 crooked sets turned up and went on display above a stall. The nephew stood with the Mutasib during tests. The wife kept the new set wrapped in cloth and opened it in public each market day. The man returned to work. The mark on his wrist drew eyes. It also drew regular checks. His stall survived because he met the rule. Fear worked because it stayed public and bounded. Across the district, word moved. Other markets used the plain sign. Riders stopped carrying letter irons to squares. The Subashes stood closer to brazier planks. The crier's script did not change much. Pillory exposure for an hour. Falaka for 12. A week's closure. Plain brand for repeat cheats. People understood the chain. Village order served fortress bread. The law taught through sight. Punishment stayed small enough to fit a day, yet large enough to hold a road. Boundaries kept fear from becoming a private tool. The Kadı kept the chest under seal until winter convoys rolled. He showed it to the inspector once more and sent the purse as evidence to the district. He told the scribe to copy the rule into the front of the book. He told the Mutasib to read it on busy Fridays. He watched boys point at the crooked weights hanging above the stall and nod. He watched traders lean over their beams and test them twice. He knew the square would remember the inch that did not cross. Some lessons endure because many eyes saw them. You stand again in the square at dusk. You feel grit under your feet and warm air from the brazier. You hear the crier's steady voice and the drum's dry tap. You know why the brand stayed plain and the chest stayed shut. The strongest punishment is public and lawful, or it is nothing at all. If this story raised a question, tell me. Do visible punishments keep order, or do they invite abuse? Subscribe for the next case and leave your view below.